Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel where we talk about, narcissism. Taking on my beloved Proverbs again. And before we get to that, reminder, healing program starts real soon. Go to the video notes and you will find link and hopefully more information at this point. And also please subscribe to this channel if you're new. Everything you want to know about narcissism, which is getting to be essential to survive in this world, is what you're going to learn on this channel. Hit that notification, then you'll get notifications every time we put out a new video. If you like it, give us that thumbs up. So let's talk about a proverb many of you have heard, which is, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I know a lot of you have heard this proverb. And again, just for those of you who might be new to this channel, the proverb series has got to be one of my favorites because at this point, these are the proverbs all of you are sending in, and somebody sent this one in recently. But the bigger they are, the harder they fall. This proverb actually is credited, believe it or not, to the early 20th century to a boxer. So it makes sense, right? A boxer should know, and it makes sense. The bigger the boxer, if you knock them out, the harder they fall. Now, I guess the boxer was being literal, but the saying has now been generalized and obviously means that the bigger, perhaps the more important, the more influential, perhaps the wealthier, then the more dramatic and impactful the person's downfall will be. Think people like Bernie Madoff or Harvey Weinstein or Jeffrey Epstein, big name folks that get brought down by a scandal and come crashing down in an epic way. But from a narcissistic abuse perspective, I don't know that I agree with this saying. I think that when we apply this saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, to powerful and wealthy people who in very rare cases get caught, convicted, or punished and brought down, maybe it's more appropriate to say the bigger they are, the messier the fall, or the more dramatic they fall. And to recognize that the bigger they are, the less likely they are to fall. I think that we're just more interested in the fall when these big names fall because, let's face it, there's nothing better than watching a powerful, entitled, and cruel person be brought down. And it can be depressing to think about how much harm they perpetrated before they were actually caught. So we know this. The big rarely fall, especially in a world that incentivizes narcissism and psychopathy, in a world that enables these patterns, excuses them, and ignores the people that are harmed by all of this behavior. I would argue that the less big people are in the world of narcissistic abuse, the harder they fall. Why? Because it's the ordinary day-to-day people, not billionaire, celebrity, famous, infamous folks that take the hardest hits because of narcissistic abuse. It's the regular people. It's people who in good faith are trying to be good people, good parents, good partners, good family members, good community members, good employees, good business owners, good coworkers, good managers, good bosses. It's these ordinary people who, when they get nailed by narcissistic abuse, are the ones who fall the hardest of all. The people who fall so hard it's the people with limited resources who are not able to fight in family court. It's the people who don't have enough savings and as a result can't leave a boss and have to endure a narcissistic boss or company or customers and can't quit. It's the people who are trying to be good parents but are being undermined by a narcissistic co-parent. It's the people who are trying to set boundaries within toxic and abusive family systems. It's the people who run good businesses and ethical companies, but are being sued by narcissistic, aggrieved, and entitled people. The fact is that most of us don't have the sort of psychological reserves or financial reserves to be able to withstand a hit from a narcissist. I actually recently read a story about a woman who rented out a room in her apartment to what turned out to be a narcissistic grifter. This experience has cost her tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and possibly it looks like the loss of her home. And the experience isn't over yet. The grifter's still living in her apartment. I have read stories of people who had to give up in family court because they could no longer afford the legal fees and had to watch their children unravel because they were being placed in such horrible custody situations. I've heard stories of people who have been struggling in narcissistic relationships of all kinds for years, but can't afford therapy with a therapist who gets it to help them process it. To me, that is a much harder fall than having to trade Gucci and Chanel for an orange jumpsuit. Frankly, it is the damage to all of us regular folks that is the real issue in narcissistic abuse. The big people who fall, they did something to deserve that fall. They likely committed crimes or perpetrated against other people for many, many years until they finally got caught. I think when the mighty fall, we're more shocked that the system worked, which is why it feels like a harder fall. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. These are folks who seem untouchable, and for most of their lives, they have been. When it's done, if they do end up in jail, I suppose that is a big downfall from their mansions and country clubs. But in many cases, it doesn't go there. Their fancy defense attorneys work out all kinds of settlements so that they get a penalty that is meaningless to them. It's a bit like the rest of us getting, I don't know, a $40 parking ticket. And even a $40 parking ticket is a lot for many, many people. These big fancy people, if they do get brought down, they go on with plenty of money. Look at the Sackler family, who famously ensured that the opioid crisis would make them rich. My guess is that these folks are all living quite comfortably in their fancy apartments and mansions. Yeah, I guess they lost their reputations. But really, was it that hard a fall? So when it comes to narcissistic abuse, it's the regular folks, the not big shots, who fall the hardest. Therapy is expensive. Lawyers are expensive. Legal settlements are expensive. And what we can't even put a price on is the psychological toll, the self-blame, the self-doubt, the chronic anxiety, the toll on physical health, the time wasted in regret and rumination, the powerlessness and the helplessness. To me, that's the harder fall. So while it may be gratifying, and God knows it's gratifying, to watch the mighty fall, it's the rest of us who are actually really taking the harder falls. So yeah, maybe the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Not so sure that applies in narcissistic abuse. It's the regular folks like us that really are getting hit hard. So thanks again for tuning in, and please tune in because we'll keep bringing all this information on narcissism to you every single day.